In the latest democratically approved poll, one Joe Biden, who was frontrunner for the last several months, has dropped 13 points. Yes, 13 points. That is an absolute, complete, gargantuan, astronomical implosion, and has fallen into the third spot. Sanders, sharing it with Warren. In that particular poll, anyway, in other polls, Warren is behind. But in that particular poll, is now moved to the number one spot in the polls. And it's not just that. I want to actually read to you what they're saying, because reading it makes it worse. It's one thing to see, oh, wow, the guy has dropped 13 points into the third place in this poll that the Democrats have approved. Reading it is something different. Reading it is the thing that makes it make sense. Biden has suffered across the board decline in his support since June. He has lost ground with white Democrats from 32% to 18%, and voters of color from 33% to 19%, among voters without a college degree from 35% to 18%, and college graduates from 28% to 20%, with both men from 38% to 24%, and women from 29% to 16%, and among voters under 50 years old from 21% to 6%, as well as voters age 50 and over from 42% to 33%. Most of Biden's lost support in these groups shifted almost equally towards Warren and Sanders. Also, people with bad legs, people with bad backs, people that has gone gray early in their life. He has had a collapse. That's not a good thing for a campaign a year out, to just outright, utterly, and entirely collapse. Electability is a fickle mistress. That is the effect of what you're seeing for the most part. You can't get on the campaign stage one day after the next in one stop. You can't remember, literally, you can't remember where you are. He's in New Hampshire and he thinks he's in Vermont. In another case, goes on a rambling speech about Obama being assassinated and somehow winding that into, being in school. Everybody was confused, including the audience itself. Keeps calling Theresa May, Margaret Thatcher. I mean, it's one thing after the next. He is having difficulties. You can't have one cognitive glitch, one conceptual mishap after the next, and people not notice. I openly wondered, how long can Biden go through this, doing this, and people give him a pass? And the very next day, in fact, what do you know? People have started to notice. Well, Biden needs to get his campaign back on track. So in order to do so, Biden released a new campaign video on healthcare. Now, Biden always had somewhat of a tenuous position, and I said Biden wasn't going to last because he's out of kilter with what the left wants. But if the left is with this notion of his electability because they're so terrified of Trump, we just need him to beat Trump. We just need him to beat Trump. And in that sense, they were looking at Biden as, to some degree, as their guy. So they would ignore certain things. Meaning, yes, he's out of line with what we want for healthcare, but. Yes, he's out of line with what we want for environmental policy, but. At the point, however, when they're saying, oh my God, this guy is sundowning, sundown Biden, he can't beat Trump. The debates are going to be held at like 9 o'clock. He's going to be out of it. His wife is going to be giving him applesauce and whatnot just before the debates. This is untenable. And his poll drops. The people weren't sticking with Biden because they loved him, per se. Meaning you could hit Biden and people not feel all that tethered to him, per se. But what happens is, they're like, okay, you're right. He's not our guy. And even with this notion of electability, we do want it to be tethered to something. And the moment that we see conceptually, cognitively, he doesn't seem to be altogether there. Falls apart. Biden is trying to get this thing back on track. And he releases a campaign ad using his dead son to sell his campaign plan that leaves millions uninsured. And over the course of a decade, will leave hundreds of thousands of people dead. It's not so much that this ad is offensive, but as someone with a medical illness, this ad, if I'm being honest, makes me dislike Biden that much more. This ad is incoherent in its tone, and the convincing statement that it uses is aggravating. Let me say it that way. I'm going to show you the ad. Welcome to Soapbox After Dark. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, I hope you guys are doing okay tonight. Soapbox After Dark. If you guys like this content, dig this content, and you find yourself coming back to this channel often, please like this video, share this video, and subscribe. Also, I think I said that wrong or said that in a weird way. However, you get my point. If you like it, please hit the like button, share this content, and subscribe. Also, if you really find yourself digging in this content, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. I say that all the time, and I try to find different ways to say it. And sometimes it's almost going on this kind of automatic thing. I don't like saying it. It's just kind of one of those things that's part, of course, for doing the job. Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not having a good week, and that's to put it mildly. I am not one of those people. I'll put it this way. In horror movies, you have a situation where the good guy hits the bad guy, and the bad guy falls. And the good guy always, without fail, gets up and runs away. And my wife is typically hitting me saying, kill him, don't let him. Essentially, when he's down, hit him. When sundown Biden is on his knees, I am not one of those people that walk away. I'm going to hit him. Especially when he releases a campaign ad that, again, not so much is offensive as it makes me dislike him that much more. Because to some degree, this ad is absolutely incoherent and tone deaf. It gets across what he wants to get across, meaning we need to extend Obamacare. But what he's saying and using his dead son to do it does not jive with what he ends up on. I would explain what I mean. Let me show you the ad first so you can have some kind of idea on what I am talking about.
I was sworn into the United States Senate next to a hospital bed. My wife and daughter had been killed in a car crash. And lying in that bed were my two surviving little boys. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like if we didn't have the health care they needed immediately. 40 years later, one of those little boys, my son Beau, was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given only months to live. I can't fathom what would have happened if the insurance companies had said for the last 6 months of his life, you're on your own. The fact of the matter is, healthcare is personal to me. Obamacare is personal to me. When I see the president try to tear it down and others propose to replace it and start over, that's personal to me too. We got to build on what we did because every American deserves affordable health care. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
It's personal to Joe Biden. Healthcare is personal to Joe Biden. Whether Joe Biden realizes it or not, healthcare is personal to everybody because everybody that has a body is, for the most part, a unit unto themselves. You cannot hear my thoughts. I cannot hear your thoughts. And when I have some kind of illness, some kind of flu ailment, if I stump my toe, if I hit my head, whatever, what are those foibles of just being a human being? It is personal to me because it is only felt by me. I don't know what other people are feeling. I don't even know if other people exist as a flat fact. I have to accept it as kind of just this thing of being a human being. However, I do know when I hurt, that I am the only one that feels it. And as such, anything that happens, any medical ailment, any illness, any vulnerability is personal to the individual themselves. Joe Biden has suffered deep, painful tragedies, and I don't take it from a one iota. I know my mom, when she was sitting there and her son was ill and the nurse is telling her that, look, we don't know if your son is going to make it. Or when the doctor comes into the room and says, look, if I have to take you to surgery, you're not getting off the table. Those things are deeply personal and those things are painful. And a mom sitting there dealing with a kid to which they can't do anything about, I will guarantee you that I can see the pain in her as she has to deal with that particular instance, while simultaneously holding back the tears because her son doesn't necessarily believe that people should break down and cry in those particular moments. Not to mention, there is something to be said about being strong for the other individual. It's all personal. It is what it is. It's part of the process. It's part of being a person in and of itself. I don't begrudge Joe Biden for essentially bringing this up. I begrudge him because this is a tone-deaf video. I can't fathom what it would be like if I didn't have health care. That's what Joe Biden said in that video. And he goes on to say it's personal. It's personal. It's deeply personal. Within the context of when Donald Trump says he wants to get rid of health care, it's personal to me. And when others want to replace it, it's personal to me. Medicare for all is not the same thing as Donald Trump trying to get rid of health care. Does Joe Biden know that? Or has Joe Biden not taken his pills this morning? What is going on with this? Medicare for All is a plan that is literally talking about expanding Medicare, a program that currently and already exists and that is loved by the people that is on Medicare, and expanding it out to the rest of the nation to say that if you are an American, congratulations, healthcare is your birthright. The system that we have now is entirely and massively unsustainable. We need to do something different. Obama gave it a shot. The neoliberal utopian idea of Obamacare, where health insurance companies can still make all the profit in the world, and drug companies can make all the profit in the world. And I'm being hyperbolic because I know there were price limits that were put on the health insurance companies, but we're still talking about like 30%. Medicare's overhead is like 2%. You have a business where the people are trying to maximize their profit while simultaneously, supposedly, providing health care, when the health care that they provide will detract away from the profits. Why does that business exist? A business should not exist in that process when it is literally running afoul against people getting health care. The goal of health care should be ensuring that each and every person gets health care. And we can do that. Medicare does that. We don't need insurance companies to do that. Expanding Medicare for all and upping to include dental and vision. Essentially, all the needs of an individual in this particular society covered. That's what Medicare for all is. It can be done because it has been done in other places. That's not the same as Trump's let's get rid of it. Nor is it the same as Trump care. Those are radically different things. One covers everybody as a birthright. We've evolved as a society as such, and we are so freaking rich as a society that it is sad and pathetic and a bit shameful that we don't ensure each and every person is covered, especially when the system that we have now is twice as much as every other place in the world. Not to mention the raping that takes place from the standpoint of drug prices, where they can just raise on a whim a product that you can't live without, and it's business. I have this thing that you need or else you die. And hey, I can raise this by 100%, 1,000%. You can't do anything about it because what? You need the drug, right? Right? We can do better. We can do better. In this video, Joe Biden is arguing, my dead son makes healthcare personal to me. And my dead son makes it personal when people want to replace and change Obamacare to a system that covers everybody. Because I want to extend Obamacare with my system, Biden Care. And what are you going to do in your system, Biden Care? I'm going to leave millions of people uncovered as a policy choice. You're telling me about your dead son. Understand what I'm saying in this. I'm not insane when I'm saying this. John McCain was tortured. John McCain, when he got out of that torture and got back into the country, John McCain was still a war hawk. He wanted to bomb each and every place. Some places, even the military say, whoa, calm down there, soldier. You don't necessarily need to bomb that country. John McCain was a warmonger. He was okay with killing all sorts of people in those bombings. However, what was John McCain's red line? Torture. We don't torture. We can't torture. We shouldn't torture. Torture is a horrible, horrible thing. Let's never, never torture. Bombing and killing? Yes. Maiming? Yes. Torture? No. No. Why? Because John McCain was tortured. Have you heard John McCain talk about what he endured under that torture? It is abominable. It dug into him. It's in him. Because it's what have happened to him. Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney is a right-winger's right-winger. But he's okay with gays. Why? Because his daughter's gay. In which case, it gives it somewhat of a pass because he has a personal relationship with one of the people involved that is part of that particular culture. It digs in him. The fact that those things, and they're exposed to those things, changes the individual to a certain degree. It tweaks them in a way that they wouldn't necessarily ordinarily be if they were just part of the culture to which they found themselves. But Joe Biden is doing this video with this soft music, and he's talking about his dead son and all the medical traumas that he's had in his life. And he ends up not on this notion of, I can't fathom how anybody can go without health care. So I'm going to ensure that everybody has health care with universal coverage. He doesn't do that. His health care plan leaves millions of people uninsured. And so in video that's attacking a plan that covers everybody, he's using his dead son to make this point about people. I can't imagine people not having health care. But I am putting through a plan where I, in a policy choice, will, in a policy way, have people without health care. Do you realize hundreds of thousands of people will die under Joe Biden's plan over the course of a decade? And that's putting it mildly. That's putting it mildly. So, it's one of those things where this video, it's so out of sync with what he's saying. And because it's so out of sync with what he's saying, it doesn't quite make sense. And I think that's the part that annoys me about it. It's like, what you're saying doesn't follow with your policy prescription. If this really was personal to you, if it really dug into you, is this really what you come out with? A plan that leaves millions uninsured. Joe Biden's campaign has hit the skids. Good. That's a good thing. God's work. And I have a hard time believing that this brings Joe Biden back into some level of alignment in terms of the campaign. I'll leave it here. This video annoyed the hell out of me. And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's not going to go well. That's not going to go well at all. In fact, Vice has an article. Joe Biden's Medicare for All would be an insult to my dead son. Yeah, this article, campaign ad, it's not going to go well. Incoherent. Sundown Biden. Thanks all.